Hour 2 Overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line of the final score. Brian Hayes, Frankie Corrado in here. Steve Phillips coming up here in a moment. Jays, again, laying a beating on the Angels all weekend. Just they sweep them every time they play them. And I was trying to think of the team that a Toronto sports team plays against that we have the most success against. Like, who do you have the most confidence against?
I know who I'd have the least confidence if I'm a Leafs against the Sabres.
Leafs, Sabres.
That's like a significant losing record for the Leafs against the Sabres.
Yeah, it does seem like when they're in Buffalo in particular. Although even up here, the Sabres do clip them all the time.
Yeah.
Yet Buffalo's such a bad team and have been for so long.
Longest playoff drought in the NHL right now.
Yeah.
Is it not the Sabres?
It might be in like North American sports. It's up there.
Jesus.
Like I'm pretty sure the Sabres are fighting for that position. Yeah, the Sabres would be there for the Leafs. For the Jays, like the opposite way, I don't know, but it's got to be the Angels. Now, I know that's recency bias, but it just feels like they beat up on the Angels all the time.
We just saw it. I guess maybe if I was going least for the Jays, would it not be the Rays? Especially down at the Trop?
Yes, the last like 15 years it would be.
Not this year, obviously, but yeah. Why does my brain automatically go to the negative, like who they lose the most against? But I can't think of who they beat the most.
It's a good question. Like, if you're a Toronto sports fan, you can use any of the teams here. Leafs, Raptors, Blue Jays, Toronto FC, Argos. Like, is there a team that they play where you say, I've never been more confident my Toronto team's going to win that game?
That's a great question for Twitter, actually. Like, if anyone can send
where's
us
the confidence meter? Because I don't really have the answer. I was thinking of it on the fly here because we're talking about them beating up on the Angels. Again, recency bias, it would be the Angels. The Jays don't lose against this team. They basically throw no hitters against this team.
Dude, I'm in my head right now. I'm filing through teams in the Eastern Conference of the NHL and trying to think who the Leafs tend to beat up on.
Yeah, who do they find a way to beat?
Like, I guess you can't say Tampa. Like, Tampa gets their licks on Toronto, do they not?
Of course.
Florida, same thing. Boston, same thing.
The Leafs lose to bad teams, though.
The Leafs lose to Ottawa.
They have that history all the time. They seem to lose to Columbus once or twice a year. Like
it's always weird with
lose
Columbus.
To bad teams.
There's like a weird one with Columbus every year, isn't there?
Yeah, it's a back-to-back in Columbus, and that stupid cannon is going off the whole night. And yeah, they do find a way to lose to Columbus. I don't know where the confidence meter would be for the Leafs. Like, what is the number one team? I got like the team on the other end of the spectrum has got to be Boston. You mentioned Buffalo, but it has to be Boston. Like Boston, just because of the substantial
playoffs.
Losses that they've had, right? Like they've lost so badly to them,
crushing
for over a decade.
But they're a good team.
And no, I understand that, but still, like if we're doing a confident, you would have to rank them 32nd, or I would anyway. The first is it Detroit. Well, it feels like, I don't know, hockey's different because they play Detroit 4 or 5 times a year, so I don't know. I'm sure they lose. So it does feel like they've got Detroit. They beat them up a lot, though, in the Matthews era. Like, it feels like they've gone into Detroit and spanked them a bunch.
Okay. I have memories of the Leafs, like, doing that California trip recently and having success.
Anaheim stinks, but I feel like Anaheim beats them somehow. Again, I don't know if the Leafs apply here.
The goalie had 100 saves that one night.
Okay,
they still lost.
JP's got a stat. Yeah, what do you have for us, JP, that's going to make us feel good about, our confidence level with the Leafs in particular?
Define confidence maybe after this, but in 50 games minimum played against a team, the Leafs have the best points percentage against the Anaheim Ducks.
Okay, there it is. The Ducks. You called it.
If you want to stretch it to 100, it becomes the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do feel like they play New Jersey well.
Really?
Okay, I like that, JP. Sure, why not? I don't know. No, I guess. I don't have
no
any.
one cares what they think in New Jersey.
Maybe that's why, because I have such little time for anything about New Jersey. I just look down on them so much as a state. The whole state, I have no time for.
Except for Satrials and
the Bing.
The
Bing and Satriali's. That's about it.
Yeah.
No one cares about what people in New Jersey think.
So now Sheldon Keefe's going there to try to reverse the curse.
And
maybe that's why they hired him.
He's the betting favorite for the Jack Adams this year. Go figure.
He checks every box, right?
New coach.
Bump. Everyone knows they're going to be better this year. That defense is really good. Like on paper, they got a real chance to be really good. 2 good goalies now with Markstrom there. Like everything screams 112 points. Sheldon Keefe, coach of the year.
And wouldn't that be the most Toronto thing ever for your coach?
More so if he wins in the
coach.
playoffs.
Okay, that's
Don't
fair.
you think?
Yeah, for sure. Because he did the regular season here, but it would just be the most Toronto thing ever that like the coach that you fired goes somewhere else and now he's the coach of the year. Just like a lot of the players that used to play for the Leafs come back, you know they're going to score in Toronto, and you know a lot of these guys are going to have big years, and some guys are going to win Stanley Cups, a.k.a. Kessel, Bozak. I know I'm missing a few, but there's just been
a bunch of them.
There's been a lot, right?
Yeah. Well, we almost saw Hyman and Connor Brown grab one there at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Right?
The teams I played for, Dion, the next year was in the Eastern Conference Final against the Penguins.
Yeah.
They lost in double overtime of Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Final.
That close, Dion in a cup final the next year.
Yeah.
Absurd.
Next year.
Absurd. Okay, so a lot of confidence against the Devils and the Ducks. You called that.
Okay.
What's the other side of that, JP? Like, what is at the bottom of that list if you still have it up? Or look into it and come back to us because I'm curious. The 50 game and the 100 game. You're going to say Buffalo over the last 50 games?
I think it's a lock, Buffalo.
I feel like Boston again. I know in the playoffs they've lost a lot in the regular season to Boston, like a lot. Last year they went 0-4 in the regular season.
Did they really?
Yeah, they did. They lost in overtime a couple times in a shootout. Remember Marchand scored with like 10 seconds left. Willie blew a wheel. I was at the game. It was absurd.
But
because Matthews scored late to tie it to push it to OT.
So they went 0-4, and then were they the favorite in the playoff series?
Probably.
Which is that doesn't make any sense.
It's just a Toronto thing. All right, what do you have, JP?
Unfortunately, Hayes, this is another team you have regularly dogged on. The Arizona Coyotes.
You're kidding me.
No. 108 games played.
Okay.
431 points percentage. It's the lowest in the head-to-head against their opponents.
Dude,
against Arizona?
Remember they hadn't beat Arizona at home since like the early 2000s, and they just did it? Wasn't that a thing that happened last year?
I guess so. Yeah, I guess
According
so.
to Hockey Reference, their record is 41, 56, and 8 against Arizona head-to-head.
How have they played Arizona that many times? Does that include the Jets? Like when they're in Winnipeg? It has to.
It has to. I assume it's including like the team, the franchise.
Yeah, that's got to include.
Whole.
That's like Dale Howardchuk torching them. I don't know if that.
I don't know. I'll see if I can separate it and see the difference. But.
Yeah, they got there in '96, right? And they only played them twice a year. And there would have been years where they didn't even play them.
They had years where they played them once a year.
Yeah, and
remember there was
like COVID and stuff. You didn't even play them.
Well, exactly.
There's no way they played them 100 times.
In the early 2000s or mid 2000s, you were going out there once a year.
Yeah.
And then the next year they would come to you.
Right.
And they changed it.
Erroneous, JP. I'm not buying that.
Okay, so we do have an update. Owen was able to find Arizona Coyotes have an 18-6-2 record against the Leafs in the last 20 years.
That's still horrendous. That's awful for the Leafs.
Well, the Coyotes have not been a good team.
No, that's terrible. I owe them. Well, I'm not going to give them any respect now because they don't even exist.
They're not a team anymore.
If they were still in Arizona, I would have taken this opportunity to apologize for everything I had to say about them in the past.
Everyone knows that's not true.
Well, I've been like emboldened with my slander towards New Jersey based on that confidence level. Right? Now that I know that the Leafs have just been slapping them around for 30 years. 20 anyway in the regular season, not in the playoffs.
Now when
Arizona owning the Leafs, that is a weird like trivia question.
There's no disrespect, Arizona.
when the Devils come around on a Tuesday night trap game, might not be a trap game.
It might not.
Be thinking, who's your daddy?
Yeah.
Right?
What does he do? Although the Sheldon Keefe element shouldn't. I don't think I don't think the Leafs are going to get up because they're playing Sheldon Keefe. It's usually the Devils would get up for Keefe.
Yeah.
Right. Like usually, like the new players for the new coach, like we owe it to him. We're going to try to get up for him.
There's probably a couple players that maybe didn't like Sheldon or didn't like playing for Sheldon that'll have a little extra that night. But I would say as a collective team, it's like that's just a coach over there.
Right.
I would say for the most part, he treated guys really well here. He gave guys lots of opportunity. He also put guys in positions to have massive career years. You know, like I think there's a lot of guys who would hold Sheldon in high regard, but at the same time, there's probably going to be guys that said, that guy didn't give me enough ice time, so I'm going to show him tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Both ways.
Yeah, for sure. And I would guess, you know, when the Leafs roll through St. Louis for the first time, it'll be the same thing with Craig Berube. Right? Returning back, you talk about an ovation that he's going to get there. They love him there. They should love him there. You know, won a Stanley Cup, and that'll be big for the
What did he
the
say
Leaf
this
players.
summer? He was like, he said something along the lines of, you know, we should hate our former team. Like
Sure.
I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember the exact quote. But
Remember Dean Evison when he was asked?
sorry, that's who it was.
Evison,
It was Dean Evison.
Going back to Minnesota, he's like, I'm dying to crush them. I shouldn't have been fired. I didn't want to be fired.
He's gonna have the crazy eyes going, and he's gonna be chomping on that gum, just looking across the ice with that scowl.
No one has a better scowl in pro sports than Dean Evison.
Yeah, if there was a scowl Hall of Fame, that guy's.
Oh, he's Gretzky.
the headliner. Yeah, he's Gretzky.
He's the
Exactly.
Gretzky of scowls.
If you can find a better scowl, send it to us on Twitter.
I don't think you can find. Maybe, yeah, I don't think so, man. Like the guy he's so intense.
And a grin screw is different than a scowl.
No, this
They're
is
two
like
very
intense.
different things.
Yeah, exactly.
This is like the guy's got to ice his jaw after the game.
He's so angry all the time.
Yeah.
All right, here's Steve Phillips, our TSN baseball insider, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. What's happening, Steve?
I want to have a scowl. Like, I want to have a good scowl. How do you, I'm going to start practicing right now because I want to develop a good scowl.
I agree. I like a scowl. I'd prefer a scowl over, you know, always like a smile all the time in pro sports. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, disposition matters.
Yeah.
You got to put forth a front that you're here to play ball.
Yeah. Now, you know, Ohtani smiles all the time and it works okay.
Yeah, he does.
So I don't know. Like, he does, right? Like, he never scowls. And it's working out all right for him. He got $700 million by being a happy guy. So I don't know.
Maybe
I'm not sure scowling's always the answer.
Maybe we're completely off base on this. Based on when in doubt, do what Ohtani does, because you're right, man. I mean, that first impression, if you can call it that, being in LA, I mean, could the Dodgers have asked for anything? I guess he could be pitching. Like, that's the only thing you could ask
Coming
for.
soon, isn't it?
I don't know. What are you hearing? What's up with Ohtani?
Well, right. So he's throwing off the mound, but he won't pitch this year. But, like, the dude's friend stole $17 million and he didn't scowl. I don't know. I don't know if he can do it. Like, if that's not enough to scowl, then I'm not sure he's got it in him. But, you know, he is throwing off the mound. He just started, but he will not pitch this year. They've already made it clear. They can't rush him into that. Look, they're going to start to get healthier with their rotation. Yamamoto is going on a rehab assignment. He'll be back into the mix. They've got Jack Flaherty. Glass now is throwing the ball well. And so, you know, they're going to be okay with their rotation as they're getting healthier, but it will not include Shohei Ohtani.
How impressed were you to see the 40-40 happen with a grand slam? Like, I don't know, is it just storybook for this guy that he signs the big deal, he's playing for the Dodgers, he hits 40-40, and it happens to be a grand slam?
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. I mean, it is a story. I mean, everything's a storybook, right? Everything's is something that is just different than everybody else, more dramatic than everybody else. And look, how about this? If he gets to 50-50, and if Judge gets to 64 home runs, where he sets a new American League record, who had the better season?
Oh, man, I'm going to say Judge, because the numbers are so. He's got 10 home runs in like 2 weeks now. He's up to 51 on the season, and
he's got 10 home runs in his last 13 games.
Insanity.
It's outrageous.
It's outrageous. And like, remember when he was chasing 62 a couple of years ago? He hit the wall a little bit, and I think he was chasing it, and because he wanted to obviously establish what he was trying to establish and pass Maris and set a Yankee record, and then he was hoping to get paid. There was a lot hanging over him. I don't think that's going to be hanging over him this year, Steve. Like, I don't see he's not going to hit at the same pace. Extrapolating that over the rest of the season, he's not going to end up with 70 plus. I don't think. But what's stopping him from 63, 64?
Yeah, really only if people don't pitch to him.
I guess.
And the key, and here's the thing, the key to that is not who's hitting behind him, because that's Stanton. And look, Soto, Judge, and Stanton went back to back to back yesterday. But Stanton's not going to protect Judge and think, oh, let me pitch to Judge because I don't want to face Stanton. The key for Judge is to be protected from the front. It's about Soto getting on base. It's about Volpe getting on base or whoever else they're going to put in that leadoff spot. If they get a couple runners on, then you have to pitch to them because you can't walk them with nobody out in that situation because then you're going to have to face Stanton and the rest of the lineup there. And so, Jazz Chisholm and guys like that. So I think that there's no telling where he can go, but he'll be, I guess, the fifth player ever who has hit 50 home runs. He is the fifth player ever to hit 50 home runs before September 1st. Now, he's got 5 games left to do it. And all the other guys, it's Bonds, it's McGuire, it's Sosa. The other guys who have hit, and Babe Ruth is one of them as well, and he's the fifth. And so, so only Babe Ruth is really legitimately a guy who's done what he's doing right now. And the other guys are the guys that we know cheated along the way.
Well, and that's what always complicates this conversation. But you mentioned Bonds, and I saw something over the weekend that was comparing what Ohtani's doing, where like Ohtani's season and the pace he's on would not even be in Bonds' like top 10 all time. Like statistically, when you look at what he was doing when he was in his prime, and I mean what he was using, whether he wants to admit to it or not, I think none of us are stupid, none of us are naive. But the guy was it was stupid, Steve. I mean, he was in your wheelhouse. You were a GM in the league when he was playing.
Yeah, right.
Stupid. I guess what I'm saying is from a perspective standpoint, as great as Judge is right now, as great as Ohtani is right now, if you're 18 and watching this or listening, you have no idea what Bonds was in like 2002, how terrifying he was.
Yeah.
Right. No idea.
No question about it. Yeah, I mean, think about the number of. I think he got walked 212 times in a season.
Right.
I mean, just let that sink in. I mean, that is unheard of. The number of walks and how many intentional walks that he had, and yet now we know why and how and everything else. And what we do know is that HGH, which we understand he was taking, he said unknowingly and unwittingly that he couldn't believe that his trainer would have given him something like that. And so he was just thinking he was taking flaxseed oil and all of that. But whatever you believe. But, HGH improves your vision, which would certainly help with walks. It also, not only does it increase your strength, but it also, the quick twitch, that ability to get to an inside pitch where, maybe you weren't able to before, it does help you do that too. And so, yes, you do need the eye-hand coordination. People have said, well, yeah, you still need to be able to, but and that's true, but it did help him in ways that I think people don't understand. When his hat size went up like, a full size from 7.25 to 8.5, and his feet got bigger. His shoe size went from like a 10.5 to a 13. And so, is what the story is. And so, look, it certainly benefited Bonds. And he's doing things at a pace that not even Judge is doing. He did things at a pace not even Judge is doing right now. But Aaron Judge is going to go down in history as one of the top 3 all-time power hitters in the game. And, oh, by the way, he's hitting .333 and has an outside chance at the Triple Crown this year.
Oof. Oh, I mean, it's really spectacular what Judge is doing. And I guess more on the negative side, it's spectacular what the White Sox have been able to do. Like, they're already at 100 losses. Is this the worst team you've ever seen, Steve? Like, what are you watching here with the White Sox?
It's honestly the worst that, they'll have the worst record that any team's ever had, including the 1962 Mets, the expansion team. The 62 Mets, which, was, I think they had 40 wins in their season or 42 wins in the season. They're not going to get there, the White Sox. They're not going to get there. And so, I think it's the worst season we've ever seen. And, Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner, really needs to, come to grips with, the biggest contract they've ever given anybody is 5 years, $75 million. And they gave it to Andrew Benintendi. So even the biggest they've given really was not a good contract, has not worked out well for them. But they're not playing the game. They're not, there's a price you pay, to compete, and they seem unwilling to do it. And, at some point, the fan base has got to get frustrated to the point where they start to voice their opinion on it. Now, Jerry Reinsdorf may not own the team for that much longer. He owns the Bulls. And, I'm not convinced necessarily that he's going to be in the long haul for owning. But, for right now, they need to spend some money and compete while they rebuild and give these young players an opportunity to learn how to win a little bit at the major league level. That when you have a chance to win, you got to close games out. They've got the worst record in baseball when they have a lead after 6 innings, when they have a lead after 7 innings, and when they have a lead after 8 innings. They've got the worst record in baseball. So their bullpen has let them down every single time it looks like they have a chance to win. They seem to give it up.
Steve Phillips, our TSN MLB insider. Word over the weekend is that Bo BIchette is nearing a return, will likely return. He's a professional. If he's ready to play and capable of playing, he's going to play. Yet I'm wondering if you see this, is there anything deeper to this that we should be looking at, Steve? In other words, there's a lot of reporting going on now that Bo's got no intention of staying here long term. He's not interested in negotiating an extension. He's got 1 year left of team control. If they want him here, he'll play here next year. But is there anything he can do in his return that could affect any of the trade conversations, his value, how the Jays could play it come the offseason?
Well, there's nothing he can do to hurt it. So he can only help it. And so if he were to come back the last month of the season, look like himself again, go out there and swing the bat, and, put up some numbers and show that he's healthy playing shortstop and that he can stay healthy for the month and his legs are okay. I mean, look, I think that they need to be creative. We've talked about that, right? Try to be as creative as possible. And, when you look at a value of a player, it's based upon how healthy they are and how productive they are and how much more team control do you have, right? And age is a factor. And so he's still young, so there's that going in his favor, but he's been underproductive, he's been injured, and he's got only 1 year of control left. So it doesn't add up to a great value, but if he can show that at least he's healthy for the last month of the season, and he looks like the prime premium Bo BIchette, then it at least takes care of that. Now, teams will say, yeah, but he often gets hurt, so he's better now, but I'm assuming some risk. So teams will downplay, diminish value, but it can only help the Jays if he comes back and he can be productive in any way, shape, or form.
Steve, how encouraging is it that Bowden Francis has really found his way here the last little bit, and he's pretty close to pitching a no-hitter on the weekend, and it gets spoiled in the 9th inning. What do you make of his play and that close call?
Yeah, he looks good. I mean, he's, what I think is really helpful to him is being on the same team as Kevin Gausman, because he's throwing, his arsenal is like that of Gausman. Gausman will occasionally throw the slider, but he's a fastball split pitcher, and that's really what Francis is. Now, Francis doesn't have the same quality of fastball velocity that Gausman does. So, maybe he's a poor man's Kevin Gausman, but that being said, he's really been very effective, and his sequencing of pitches is good. And, he is a big guy on the mound, and I think his extension toward home plate makes 93 play up a little bit because he releases it a little closer to home plate than maybe other pitchers can. So I think that the ball gets on the hitters a little bit more, but his split has really been good. And so that's a good sign. And, it doesn't mean that, he's the dead set answer in the rotation next year, but you got to feel pretty good about it. And with Uriel Rodriguez, if those two are on the back end of the big three, and then what I would do is I would add, a veteran guy who could start and really protect your rotation, but also could be a swingman like an Andrew Heaney, or a guy like that or Martin Perez, where they can step in and be starters if you need them or want them to protect the young guys, or they could pivot into that long role in your bullpen and then be that protection for you. And I'd want experienced guys in that, not young guys in that, so that they can handle the role, but also if they do start, you've got some predictability about what you're going to get out of them in the rotation.
All right, Steve, we'll leave it there. Great stuff, buddy, as always. We'll do it again later in the week.
Okay, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
There he is, Steve Phillips, our TSN MLB and baseball insider, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota and check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. It's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. We're talking about Dean Evison and his scowls earlier. Someone sent in a picture of Bill Cowher. It's a great one. Bill Cowher.
Great scowl.
The old Steelers head coach. I don't know if he's still doing stuff with CBS. He had been on, the NFL on CBS for years, but they turned over a lot. Like, I don't think Boomer Esiason's back. I don't think Phil Simms is back, and I don't know if Cowher's back either. But Bill Cowher had a serious scowl. Yeah. Jason tweeting in saying Rod Brindamore, but not to the same extent.
Not like Evison, man.
Like, he's intense, but not like I want to kill somebody intense.
Yeah, but I'm looking at Cowher now.
Bill Cowher was outrageous because he had the stash and he'd always wear a hat, like a flat brim hat that didn't look like it fit his head, but he didn't care.
He looks like he's got cinder blocks for hands.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, you'd shake his hand and it'd be like sandpaper.
Yes. And he just cannot wait for football all the time. Like, football coaches live such a different lifestyle. Like, I think every coach, if you're a professional coach in any capacity, it's a massive time-consuming commitment. Massive. But you hear, who else actually, I just thought of this, was, oh, man, now I'm blanking on his name. I can't believe it. Oh, there! Look at that. There's Bill Cowher. Look at Bill Cowher. That's Jerome Bettis, too. He loves Jerome Bettis. He's probably saying, I love you. He's probably like, I love you.
Great run.
Great run. I love you.
That's how we do it.
That's, yeah. Next time, though, do this or I'll... John Gruden was who I was thinking of. John Gruden had a bit of a scowl.
John Gruden?
John Gruden, yes.
The Oakland
football, yeah, with Oakland. He was with Tampa. Remember, he's ESPN. Oh, yeah, man.
Remember his scowl.
You'd find him, Chucky had a bit of a scowl.
Well, there's also an element of, like, crazy eyes to it. Like, Tomlin
can get intense and be like, when he's staring at a ref or something.
Like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big time.
That would scare you. If you're a ref and that guy's giving you crazy eyes plus a scowl.
Not good.
Yeah, maybe you keep the flag in.
Not good.
On the next time around.
Yeah, and the reason I was thinking Gruden was because I was talking about the time-consuming, like the commitment, and he would tell public stories. Like, he'd show up at the facility at like 3 a.m. He would show up
as
a coach. Yeah, he'd be like, I get there Tuesdays at 3 a.m., and we leave at 11 p.m.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing that whole time? You know what I mean? I feel like there's a part of NFL coaches like that it's just bogus. Like I kind of, there's a part of me that wants to believe like Andy Reid is there like 4 hours a day. You know what I mean? And
he delegates.
He delegates and he's so efficient and he knows and he loves what he does and he's got a game plan. And he's like, why would I be here all night? Like, what's the point of that?
Maybe.
Probably not, but
I don't know.
It doesn't seem likely. It just seems a little bit ridiculous that NFL coaches feel like they have to be at the facility 20 hours a day.
I feel like NFL coaches, and maybe this is certain NFL coaches, it's their whole persona that they're a coach and they're a football coach, that people don't even, like, people in their life don't even call them by their name. They just call them coach. Yeah, hey, coach is coming over today. It's like your kid's first birthday. Yeah, coach will be here. Like, they go by coach.
They're coach all the time.
In their life.
See, there's a scowl. There's John Gruden. That's a scowl. Bill Cowher's is better. And Dean Evison's is a little bit better.
That could be a grin screw. Like, that's borderline grin screw.
Nah, he was pretty crazy. Like, Belichick would be like a smoky-eyed. The NFL probably has. It's Dean Evison and then NFL coaches. That would be at the top. John Schneider can get that red face going every once in a while. I wouldn't say it's a scowl, and he's usually got glasses on, and you can't really see it.
Yeah.
But something's going on there, for sure. All right. Well, send us more if you have them. When you think of a scowl, like a head coach that just looks permanently disturbed and angered. And
I'm trying to think of, like, the history of Leafs coaches. Babs had a bit of a scowl.
Babcock definitely did.
He had a scowl.
Because he just had that face to him that, like, had a lot of character and scars and everything. Like, yeah, he would look like he had a scowl. Babcock had a scowl. He had that face.
I know,
that
man.
Scowl
like,
face.
There's just so many things you can say, but you just can't say.
Yeah. There's probably been a lot. I don't think of Pat Quinn as a scowl.
He would throw his gum a lot.
Yeah, he would get pissed off. Pat Burns.
That's a scowl for sure.
If you have a mustache, it adds to it. But there's Dean Evison. Dean Evison saying hello to his family.
Good morning, honey.
Hello, good morning. It's like, oh my God, that's intense.
Yeah.
All right. Frankie's in here. We got more still to come. Scotty Vale coming up. Keegan Bradley with a big win yesterday at the BMW. Scotty's coming up. He was on the bag. Scotty was getting a lot of airtime yesterday, too, man.
I love it.
Like, Bones loves talking about him, too. The caddies, they stick together. Like, there's Scotty Vale. Scotty Vale with a great idea there. Scotty Vale. Like, he got a lot of name drops and a lot of TV time.
He deserves it.
He does. He's a beauty. So Scotty's coming up in about an hour. CJ will join us as well. We're getting, again, this is pre-September. We've established the last week of August is no longer in August. It's pre-September. So basically we're in to training camps.
Hopefully CJ's not listening right now, and we can ask him, CJ, what team do you have the most confidence in when the Leafs play them?
Yes.
Let's see what his answer is. I've pulled up some numbers. There's some ugly ones and some unexpected ones that we can go through.
Let's get back into that. Let's get back into that for sure. Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel, still to come as well. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, still haven't heard from the O-Dog. Jeff O'Neill called me 2 minutes into the show. I posted the live shots on Instagram, so you can kind of follow along the story. I'm going to have to do like a full TikTok, Instagram thing on that. That's breaking new ground for the O-Dog. It's his show. 2 minutes into the show, he called my cell phone.
The best part is, like you said, he'll be sitting here doing the show. Someone will call him and say, don't these people know I'm on this show 4 p.m. every single day?
Yep, it's coming. It's 100% going to happen. Someone will call him 5 minutes into the show next week, and he'll just snap on that guy.
Dude, you know it was golf related too. It had to be golf related. It was something to do with Adam Scott and the goofy broom putter, and he couldn't make a putt. But maybe he still thinks it can help you. But I'm not buying that.
I'm not ever doing that.
I'm not buying that.
That just ended that discussion. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I use the Spider, the TaylorMade Spider. It's been the best putter I've ever had. I actually have not moved off it, which is a rarity for me.
And you're still lefty?
I'm still shooting right and putting left, and that will never change. Don't ask me to change. I'm not going to change. I've been playing the best of my golf of my life, starting to turn and go the opposite way. You know when you like peak in a season and then you're like, and it's over. I'm on the way down. I'm brutal now.
There's a late season surge.
There can be if you play enough.
Yeah, you get like the gummy part out of the way where you're overthinking it, and then like September hits, it's a little cooler. Mm-hmm. You're not thinking anymore, and you play some good golf.
That's true. You appreciate that you're still playing because you realize it's coming to an end.
I saw you drive the green at Scarborough.
That's true, and I made the putt.
You made the eagle.
Scarborough. I did make the putt.
You were like 8 feet away.
I was so nervous hanging over that putt because if you drive the green and then miss like a makeable eagle, the birdies. 99 times out of 100, you're ecstatic with a birdie.
Birdie's a birdie.
But you get birdies. You don't get eagle opportunities.
I would argue you don't just get birdies. Like, you got to hit a good drive, second shot. You got to put a lot together to make a birdie.
And I'm not a pro, but I'm saying if you play enough and you're a decent player, you're going to come across birdies. Eagles are not like hole-in-ones, but you may go a long time without another one. Yes. Like years you could go on.
Have you made an eagle yet since then?
I don't think I have.
See?
There you go.
There you go.
Not that I'm aware of. No, I don't think I have. All right, we're talking about scowls earlier. Someone sent in Bob Knight's scowl. Bob Knight back when he was with Indiana, for sure. Mike Ditka had a scowl.
What about Brophy?
You talk about former Leaf coaches. He looked like he was tough, like notoriously tough. Because he was in the East Coast, wasn't he, for a long time? Or was he in the American League? Like, he played, I want to say, John Brophy played like a long time, 1,200 games or something in the coast, and fought like a ton.
There's a famous picture of him in practice, like swinging his stick by someone's head. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's not like him swinging his stick, but it could be with a face like that.
With
you
him,
never know.
Surprising. When you have like white hair and black eyebrows, it's terrifying. And that was John Brophy.
Okay, you want to hear something that'll gross you out?
Mm-hmm.
The Leafs' record against the Buffalo Sabres, all time, 88, 112, 18, and 11.
How many? So say that again. How many ties did they have?
88 wins.
Yeah.
112 losses, 18 ties, and 11 overtime/shootout losses. And Buffalo's been a bad team for a long time.
Yeah, like again, they've never won a Stanley Cup.
To make matters worse, the Leafs record in Buffalo, 35, 68, 6-6.
It's always been an issue. And every Leaf talks about it, like always talks about it. It's like they could not figure it out. They tried, they flew there, they took a bus there, a train there, they drove on their own. Day before.
Dude, we changed hotels.
Yeah,
in the middle
can't
of the
figure
season.
it out.
They built this nice, beautiful, shiny hotel right next to the arena. You go down the elevator, you're in the arena. We stayed at a different place the next time.
So what is it about Buffalo? Because it's not the team. It's not the players on the ice. Is it that Buffalo gets up for it?
It's
like,
all Leaf fans.
Well, exactly.
It's
like,
half Leaf fans.
Is there something to that? Because the Sabres players do seem to say that a lot, that they take it personally. Like, remember, they beat up on the Leafs last year in Buffalo. I think it was a pretty lopsided game. And I can't recall who spoke on it. It was like Tage Thompson or something like that, who said, like, it sucks. We take it personally. We get up for it because we know all our Leaf fans are going to show up. And then Jake McCabe was speaking on it, I remember the day before, because he was a Sabre for a while, and said, it's the worst. How many Leaf fans? Because you understand your own fans got rid of the tickets.
Right. Or they got beat to the tickets.
I don't think you can get beat to that many. That's season ticket holders that are like,
I guess you're right.
You can have my tickets.
Yeah.
Because I think you can sell the Leaf fans and not pay for your whole ticket, like for the whole season, but you can make a lot of money. Like, I'm sure there are guys, like at Lower Bowl, Leaf fans are probably buying those tickets for a couple of grand, and how much would they be face value?
Okay, I'll tell you.
$200, couple $100.
If I asked you, what's another building that the Leafs really struggle in over the years, and it's in the Eastern Conference, and there's probably some playoff scars from the early 2000s that would be associated.
Is it Ottawa?
With this team.
Or the Islanders?
It's not. I have a different. No, the Islanders. It's not too bad.
I always think
it's
they
around
play in New
500.
York pretty well. Like, I think they play the Rangers pretty well.
They play the Rangers fairly well.
Yeah.
Philly.
Yes, Philly.
They are in 98 games in Philly. They're 31, 56, 8-3.
Yeah, Philly's
not a good
had the
building.
Leafs number for a long time.
But on the positive side of things, remember when I said Tampa? It's like, the Leafs don't run Tampa's show.
Mm-hmm.
They actually kind of do. Like in the regular season, in 111 games, the Leafs are 62, 39, 2-8.
Okay.
And in Tampa, they're 30, 19, 1-5. So they actually play well against Tampa. That shouldn't scare people.
You would think so.
You would think so.
Although I guess, the last time they played them in the playoffs, the Leafs have the upper hand. The Leafs knocked them out in 6. And the year before, the Leafs had that series and they let it get away from them.
Yeah, playoffs is a different story.
Playoffs is always a different beast.
Playoffs is a different beast.
I feel like Boston, now, they have such a history with them because it's an original 16. Maybe they beat up on them in the 40s and 50s and 60s, and the numbers are skewed. But if you can put the numbers from like 2005 onward, I have to believe Boston's had their number a lot.
Well, if you look at the Leafs' history against the Bruins, a lot of that is in the Boston Garden, which is, I don't know, talk to anyone who played in that building back in the day. Like, doesn't sound like that was the friendliest or easiest place to play.
No.
So the Leafs' record all time against the Bruins is 105, 182, 47, and 9.
Wow, they're way back of them.
Yeah. So whether it's been the TD Garden or the Boston Garden, they were getting smashed in Boston.
Wow.
That has not been a good city.
Yeah, because Boston has owned the Leafs forever.
I mean, not bad at home. Like at home, they've been good. 177 and 113.
Okay. So I guess it just depends on where you're playing.
It's Boston. It's the building.
Yeah.
But that Buffalo
and the
thing
Leafs, I guess,
no sense.
maybe had that with the Gardens back in the day, but it's just non-existent anymore. And I don't know if TD Garden it doesn't have the same feel as the Boston Garden, clearly. Does it still have an aura to it?
It's a lively building. Like it is fairly
intimidating. Got a pretty good crowd, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah,
it is loud, man.
Just like my experiences being there, like I think I played a couple games there. First of all, it was always Chara and the big bad Bruins, and they had guys like Sean Thornton on those teams that were running around trying to put you through the boards. But then just something about like the black jerseys, the black seats, the fans they're pretty on top of you. It's pretty loud, like lively. It's tough building.
Yeah. Yeah, the color scheme in there is
intimidating.
It's a different rink for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Chris Johnston in about 20 minutes. CJ will join us. Scotty Vale will join us as well. Caddy for Keegan Bradley. Keegan's had a pretty good couple of weeks. Getting into the BMW, then winning the BMW. Now he's on his way to East Lake and the Tour Championship this week. And it's almost go time for the President's Cup as well. That's coming in September up in Royal Montreal. We can't wait for that. So we'll get Scotty, a Canadian's take on the idea of Keegan possibly playing for the American team and what that experience could be like. So Scotty Vale in about 45 minutes. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Chris Johnston in about 15 minutes. Scott Vale in about 40 minutes from now. Best bet still to come. And we'll also get to something to chew on, brought to you by Boston Pizza. Some NFL news today. CeeDee Lamb signing a monster contract, makes him the second highest paid wide receiver in the league, right behind Justin Jefferson. It's fantasy season too, Frankie. Like everyone's trying to figure out who's available, who's not, who's hurt. Is Nick Chubb going to be playing? Is he not going to be playing? Is Ayuk going to play?
Yeah, Nick Chubb.
It looks like he's going to be on the PUP list and probably won't play the first month or so. That hurts. Like if you're doing drafts and then news comes out after you've done the draft, there's nothing worse than that.
Well, especially because and with Chubb, like with the Browns, they rely on that running game so much.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's their bread and butter. That's your guy.
Isn't it amazing that Deshaun Watson is just completely irrelevant now? Like we
don't talk about him at all.
Nothing. No one's like, I think he's going to have a big year. That money is fully guaranteed, $250 million or whatever it was.
And what did it get you? It got you Joe Flacco last year.
Right. It got you a guy who didn't play through an injury last year either. Like, and in the NFL, that, in the world of Brett Favre, it's like, you got to play, man. Dude, especially with that kind of money, it's like, you got to play.
Whether people like it or not, right? Like, it's always a very sensitive topic when it comes to longevity and long-term health effects and all that kind of stuff. But, like, that kind of is the NFL. Like, you don't want people playing through head injuries. Let's make sure that's
head
very
injuries
clear.
Are different.
That's separate. That is entirely different and entirely separate. But the NFL, you get paid that kind of money, and it's a one-game thing, and it's, the season is so short as it is. Guys play through stuff, man. You're telling me Mahomes is 100% every game? Tell me Brady was 100%, Peyton Manning, these guys, like to your point, Favre, these guys played through stuff, man. That's what separated a lot of the greats from the goods or the okays.
And there's a leadership element that comes with that, especially at that quarterback position where you're getting paid the most. Yes, you can get hit hard, but you're not in the trenches the same way a lot of other guys are on that team. Like, there are players out there protecting you, and they will get cut and lose their livelihood if they don't.
Or, to your point, or the quarterbacks over the years that were getting dummied. Like, the quarterbacks are more protected now than they ever have been.
Yeah, the whole league revolves around the position. And it's like, if you want to be the man on that team and be a leader on that team, like it's incumbent upon you to play through injury, and this is where you get the reaction like, that's crazy. That's not football. Sports are not the real world. Yeah. Like, it's just, there's not an HR department that you're going to email and say, hey, by the way. Not for that.
Not for that.
For other stuff, of course. But for like playing through the injuries, it's your call. The money's going in your bank account anyway. But for your teammates to be watching you and saying, like, this guy's willing to go through a wall for us, goes a long way.
Well, guess what? If you make that decision last year, you better be rocking this year. Like, if there better be no excuses on anything. It's like, you show up, you're feeling 1,000,000%, and you're going to have a big season or else why did you sit out last year and not play?
Yeah.
In theory, it would be to make sure you're 100% ready for this year. So now's the time.
Let's see what you got. Best bets coming up still. We've got something to chew on, brought to you by Boston Pizza on the NFL and the upcoming season. Where, again, I can't tell you how many great games we have right off the bat where it's Chiefs, Ravens opening night in Kansas City. Packers, Eagles in Brazil on the Friday night, which is absurd. You've got Jets, Niners week 1. Week 2 starts Bills at Miami on the Thursday night. Like, over the course of 8 nights, you're going to have 4 or 5 games that are just going to be crazy.
We should find
all of them here on TSN.
We should find out if FanDuel has a line as to how many snaps or how many games Aaron Rodgers plays. I wonder if there's some action on Aaron Rodgers.
You know what's interesting on FanDuel? They've got the Jets as the favorite now to win the division.
Stop it.
Slight favorite, yes. They're ahead of the Bills and ahead of the Dolphins.
So you know what that is? They're assuming Rodgers is going to be healthy for the whole year. Because if he's not, there's no chance
they have no
happening.
chance. No, the same thing applies with Josh Allen, with Tua. Like, if they're hurt, then those teams probably have no shot either. But, yeah, you've got to assume health. The 40-year-old health coming off an Achilles injury, man. I can't do that with the Jets. I can't buy into the hype. I can't. And their talent and what they have on as a roster, they are loaded. Like, they are loaded. They got maybe the best defense in football. They've upgraded their offensive line. They have weapons. They have Rodgers. But they're the Jets, and they have to prove it. Will they? We'll see. CJ coming up. Scott Vail coming up. Final hour. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.